Good evening, ghoul friends and sunburned survivors. Welcome to the Afterlife Hotline, Summerween weather report.
We are your hosts, and we regret to inform you that today's atmosphere is emotionally unstable. We're currently tracking a high-pressure system of humidity, bad decisions, and unexplained noises coming from bodies of water that should absolutely be empty.
If you're outside tonight, please remember, sunscreen will not protect you from spiritual consequences.
Let's break it down. We're sitting at a scorching, why is it 95 degrees at 9 p.m.? Heat index currently measured at the air is arguing with my personality. Humidity 100%, or as locals call it, breathing soup.
Yes, absolutely. There is also a reported increase in paranormal activity near public pools after closing, lakes where nobody remembers entering the water, and one suspiciously loud backyard inflatable pool that definitely wasn't there yesterday.
Tonight's supernatural outlook includes 40% chance of hearing your name called from outside your window,
Ew.
60% chance of seeing movement in water that should be still, and a 90% chance of someone saying, "Did you hear that?" when you absolutely did.
Spirit activity is expected to peak during barbecue hours, especially when someone says, "I'll go check it out real quick."
Residents are advised to avoid abandoned pools, not follow wet footprints into unknown garages, and absolutely do not respond to voices that sound like your childhood friend but are coming from the woods.
I hate that.
Hi, hello.
Hello,
I'm Daneisha,
and I'm Ashley.
and this is the Afterlife Hotline.
Real quick, I made myself a little side note because I saw this last night on TikTok. I don't know how real this is, but I thought it was interesting to share. So this girl, she was talking about how she has like this entity that's in her house that likes to just move like little things around, like jewelry or whatever, just tiny little things for like a little inconvenience. And the more she talked about it, she had like a few videos on it. I'm like, this is very interesting. So it's apparently an elf that goes around and moves around shit, but apparently it's doing that because in a past life they had beef, and it's now doing minor inconveniences to her in this life.
Love that.
And I'm like, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is really interesting. And she says that she thinks that she's allowing it to come through into this life because she paints. And everything that she paints, she remembers from like different lives or whatever. And so she's realizing that she's thinking her paintings in her room are like portals.
Yeah.
From like that life to this life. So the elf is able to like pop through and go through and move stuff around. But then her and her sister, I believe it was her sister or her friend, they were trying to communicate with it, and she found out that in the past life she was a gnome, apparently.
Gnomes and elves do have beef.
But they were lovers. They loved each other, and then it turned to hatred. And now in this life, he's like got vengeance, but he's not wanting to do anything like harmful, so he's just doing little
minor inconveniences.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's very interesting.
Lovers to enemies. We love a good lovers to enemies
like,
trope.
And I'm just thinking of like your little dude on the thing.
If you don't know, I'm pretty sure we've talked about... Sorry, Kingsley. We've talked about him before. I have this little creepy gnome guy who's made with, I believe it's tree latex, so he'll actually like age and weather and stuff like that. And he's just a little cute little gnome guy with creepy beady eyes, but I love him.
Where did you get him again?
Chris got him for me when we were at Disney. He was in,
That's
it was when we were in, I want to say Epcot, but it could have been Magic Kingdom. Because it definitely wasn't Animal Kingdom. It was somewhere where we were in, I think it was Epcot, because I think we were in Norway.
Oh, okay.
Let me fix Kingsley.
Not the Kingsley. I think I'll start with the 4th of July one just because it's really long.
Okay.
Ish. Just because it has a part 2. The other two are not 4th of July, but they're definitely summer. So, if y'all haven't figured it out, this is Summerween. Bitches, it's the day after, 2 days after 4th of 3 days after 3. 2 days after 4th
Yeah,
of
but
July.
it'll be.
Oh, shit. 2, 3, 4
4
days. When you guys are watching this, it's 4 days after 4th of July, so it's now been declared Halloween. So, we are on summer spooky stuff.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking souls, and I don't remember the rest. Still yours till tonight.
Okay, so this one is 4th of July ghost lady on the beach. Many of us encounter someone who just grabs our attention in a way that we can't explain, like they know you from this or a previous life. I come from a long line of people who encountered ghosts, but I myself don't encounter the supernatural that much. I have in the past, but not often. Tonight, I know I did. This is not fake or made up. Our town is near a beach, and every 4th of July we go to see the fireworks over the water. This year was no exception. Me and my wife arrived and set up our chairs, settled in the sand, and chilled out waiting for darkness to fall and the fireworks to start. A slight breeze, a perfect, beautiful evening. About 20 minutes after we settled, I smell a waft of what I could only describe as decayed roses on the beach, like flowers in a vase that should have been thrown out a few days ago. It wasn't a bad smell, but just like the sweet roses that weren't fresh. Then I saw her. From behind walked a young woman in jean shorts, a t-shirt, and a ball cap. She looked about 25 and had light brown wavy hair coming down about halfway on her back. I was immediately struck by her presence. Not because she was beautiful. I mean, she wasn't ugly. She was pretty. But she looked a bit off. Her face especially looked pretty weird. Like her features didn't line up right or something. She stopped about 15 feet ahead of us and turned around. She looked right at me and smiled, then sat down in the sand. Again, she really looked off. Something was amiss, but I was enchanted by this woman. I looked at my wife to see what she thought, but got zero reaction. Like she didn't even see her. I smelled the decay roses on the wind again. The young woman in jean shorts and ball cap sat down, took off her flip-flops, and looked to the sky. She was sitting perpendicular to us, but facing away. When I thought about it more, 2 things struck me as very odd. She had no electronics, no cell phone. Everyone on the beach was taking selfies and playing with their phones, even the elderly. This young woman had no visible phone, no electronics. Also, her clothes looked straight out of the 1970s. First of all, that's not uncommon because people go thrifting. And then second of all, maybe she just didn't want to be on a phone. So, just saying.
I've actually seen a lot more people. Now, it's funny because they're on TikTok talking about it, but a lot more people seem to be going analog, where they're getting flip phones and stuff like that and resorting back to like having a phone and an MP3 player and, you know, whatever. So it's not all on one device.
Yep. I grew up in the 1970s, so I know what normal people look like back then. And she had the 70s look. Totally down to the tomboy jeans and really just everything about her. She seemed very content just sitting there looking at the sky and not worried about cell phones or beach chairs or anything. Again, I smelled sweet decayed roses on the wind. I took a picture of the whole scene on my cell phone, the pretty sky, the beach, and the strange woman. Shortly after, she got up and walked away behind us. I turned around to see where she went, but she disappeared. She was gone. When I got home and looked at the picture, I actually was not surprised to see she didn't appear in it. You might think I would have freaked out, but at some spiritual level, I really didn't expect her image to show up. Just a green orb appeared where she was sitting in the sand. I included the pic here. I'm calm about it because I could tell she meant no harm. I really believe she was a person who passed away back in the 70s, and she was just checking in on me for some reason. I'm racking my brain to try and remember if I knew a young woman who passed away when I was a child back then. I just can't put it together right now, but if I do, I'll update. I'll post the picture in here because I don't currently have it on me at the moment. And then there's a update / part 2. That's just like a little blip, so I'm going to read it real quick. They said, last summer I posted this true story about a supernatural woman I caught at the beach over 4th of July. She looked about 25 years old and straight out of the 1970s, like from a different era. I guess she had died in the 1970s. I said I would follow up if I discovered her identity, and I think I might have. I looked through local obituaries in my town, and we'll just call it Beachville to protect my private information. I looked through online resources that had old newspaper copies of Beachville obituaries, but initially nothing turned up. So recently, on a whim, I remembered the link post again and decided to expand my search for her a little. I searched old obituaries in the next town over, we'll call it Townville, and in those obituaries, something caught my eye. In the obituary, I saw a face of a woman who strongly resembled the young woman I saw at the beach. However, and this is in the initial disappointing part, she didn't die in the 1970s. She died 4 months after I saw the 4th of July ghost last year, November of 2021. But here's a striking twist. According to the obituary, she was born in 1957. So she would have been in her 20s in the late 1970s. That sent chills down my spine. But this did, too, according to the obituary. She met her husband in my town, Beachville, in 1979. Bingo. So all the pieces of the puzzle fit, except for the big one. She died 4 months after I saw the ghost. How can that be? I'm almost 100% sure this woman I saw in the obituary is the ghost I saw. I don't know how she died, but maybe she was very sick at the end and was having an out-of-body experience. That's the part I'm still trying to figure out. Any ideas? Can someone who is gravely ill become a premature ghost? I think so.
I would say so.
So if she was like in hospice or something, and she's like
in and out,
yeah, she very well could have just been like, maybe her 20s was like the prime that she was just like, okay.
Well, she met her husband on that beach or something,
and
you know
so
what I
she
mean?
was like, that's the age that she was during that time. And she's just out chilling and just experiencing life and like, hey, I'm going to go watch the fireworks. You know,
I was also wondering if maybe it was a residual energy type thing. Like maybe there was some impact for her on that beach on the 4th of July years ago.
Possibly.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that there was a part 2. I didn't even read it. I just saw, the title and then the picture.
Yep. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, where we're going to go whenever it's near that time. Because, like, I do believe in out-of-body experiences and stuff like that and astral projecting and things. And so it's like, if you are, out of it, where are you going?
Yeah.
What
Your
are
little
you
soul's just floating
Yeah.
around doing whatever it wants to do.
Okay, so my first one is from OK Theory, and it was titled, I had a terrifying experience one summer evening, and it still haunts me. I know this might sound a bit strange, but I feel the need to share what happened to me, my sister, and my cousins one summer evening. I've never been able to forget it, and I don't know how to tell the story without getting some chills. It was a normal evening. We were at my cousin Jenna's house with my little sisters. That's gotta be my little sister Phyrdrus.
Oh.
Fyrdaws.
That's a name. All right.
And my cousin.
Just call her Phi. I don't know.
Yeah. With my little sister Phi and my cousin on.
Oh my God.
These have got to be just Aya, because it's not Anya.
Aya?
Aya.
Aya?
Aya? Maybe.
Aya?
We're going to go with Faye and Aya.
Okay. I don't know.
The adults were sleeping downstairs in the basement. It was set up like a living room space, so they were completely out of earshot. It was summer, hot outside, and we were having a blast. We were dancing, laughing, talking about everything and also nothing, but it was basically just a normal night with your cousins. Aya went to the kitchen to get something, and she came back running, panicked, shouting that there was someone in the house. We thought she was joking, but she looked serious, so we stopped laughing and followed her. But honestly, we still thought it was just a prank. And then we heard noises. Not normal noises either. It sounded like someone was rummaging through cabinets looking for kitchen utensils. At first we thought it was one of the adults who had gone downstairs, one of the adults who were downstairs, but there was something off about the sound. It wasn't just someone getting something from the kitchen. It sounded hurried and almost like stealthy footsteps. Me and Jenna, a little freaked out, went down the hallway to check it out. And there we saw a man. He had a knife in his hand. I think my heart stopped for a second. We screamed and yelled, and we ran into a room and locked the door, but the adults didn't hear us. We screamed, but there was nothing, no response. It was like we were in a completely different reality, all alone in the house. I grabbed my phone to call my parents, and I still remember how long it took for them to answer. It felt like it took an eternity, and it was probably really about 5 minutes. Why is it taking that long to answer? Like, when they finally answered, they immediately called the police, but by the time the cops had arrived, the man had already run away.
Shit, if that was a burglar, they would have already been dead.
Yeah.
Come on
They
now.
never found him. After that, we couldn't sleep. We spent the whole night crying, and even now, years later, I still think about that scene. I don't think this is paranormal. Even though it was in the paranormal threads. I still think about that scene, and I fear it. We never really recovered from that experience and that fear. It never leaves us. Something like that changes you for life. But that was just the beginning.
Oh, shit.
After that incident, things got even stranger. Not only did we experience intense moments of fear, but I also began having strange dreams. Almost every night in these dreams, I would see a man with a knife, but in a different way. Sometimes he would stand in the shadows, watching the house as if he was observing us from the outside. Other times he was in the room with us, but no one ever seemed to see him. It was terrifying, and every time I woke up, I felt like there was a presence still following me. I also dreamed of doors closing by themselves, windows slamming shut suddenly, and sounds coming from the room next door, as if the man was still in there. I even had the feeling that he was in my dreams to warn me that something worse was going to happen. After each dream, I would wake up suddenly, my heart racing, my breath shot, and even after all this time, those dreams still linger, reminding me of what we experienced that night. Now, I am 18 years old, and I can tell you that this was just the beginning. Since that night, I've had hundreds of paranormal experiences, some even stranger than this one. Believe it or not, what I'm saying is completely true, and maybe some of you have had a similar experience, and if that's the case, I'd love to hear your stories.
That's scary.
I mean,
I don't like that. I don't like the fact that he had a knife.
well, and I feel like it's possible that a man really did break in, but when you're a young age, you process trauma differently. And I'm not saying that this isn't a paranormal story. I believe it probably opened the door for him to start seeing paranormal things.
Yeah.
Because you process trauma differently. And I would say, as a child, I would consider that a near-death experience. And when you have near-death experiences, you often open a door to the other side, per se.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe that was the catalyst that allowed this person to start having paranormal experiences.
Probably.
Especially since, because, like, I understand seeing something scary and then having it in your brain consistently, because, like, when I first watched the remake of Prom Night, I still lived in North Carolina, so I was like maybe 9 or 8 or
Also Slender Man.
so yeah, Slender Man too, yeah. But Slender Man I knew was fake. Though, like, I knew it was a thing, but like this was a real person because he's a teacher that's obsessed, and he went to prison or whatever, and he broke out. But I swore I could see that man. Like, we would go shop around the store, and I would see that man, and it's really just any bearded guy, I think. But like,
You're just like on edge.
yeah. So I could definitely see like having that person in your dreams or seeing that person like out in the yard or whatever it is. So while I don't think necessarily at the beginning it was paranormal, I think it opened the door for something paranormal.
Yeah. Creepy. I didn't like it. So this one's called Skinwalker Sighting on a Summer Night. I was standing with my older brother, both of us smoking cigarettes, outside on my parents' porch. My family and I grew up in a very superstitious part of the American Southwest. I guess you could say in a part of America where there's a very strong fear of skinwalkers. I know, another skinwalker story, but what I witnessed alongside my brother felt chillingly real. A few years before this incident, my older brother and I encountered something in our parents' backyard, so we've always been a bit on edge at night around our neighborhood. Still am to this day. That, and we grew up in a culture that discourages people from wandering around at night without some sort of cultural blessing. But we were a few years older now, smoking our cigarettes, catching up because my brother was attending college in the city, and I was finishing up my junior year in high school. I was rambling on about something when I saw my brother's startled look out at our neighbor's yard. I looked over at what he was staring at and found myself looking at a shadow figure standing outside our neighbor's house. And it's hard to describe the shadow, as its figure was basically blacker than the night outside, the dim glow of the streetlights having an almost shadow radiance, if that makes any sense. It was standing on the side of our neighbor's house, and while I couldn't see its face, I knew it was staring at our neighbor's draped windows. Ugh. No. So I don't like any windows being open, like blinds being open at night. Ugh. My brother and I looked at each other with disbelief. We'd both hear the stories about skinwalkers roaming around at night. I mean, we both witnessed that sort of thing years ago, but it was only a glimpse followed by hearing the most otherworldly, horrifying howl that sounded both human and animal.
Sounds familiar.
But this was different. It was like seeing something we were never meant to see, something even more sinister. We said nothing to each other, turned our gaze back towards the figure, which was still staring at the neighbor's window. After what seemed like a long moment, the figure started to slowly turn and walk towards our neighbor's backyard. But the way it moved was a surreal sight. It looked to be moving both slow and fast at the same time, like jogging in place, except it was gliding along. Ew. Then it moved towards a group of neighborhood dogs. Aw, leave the dogs alone. And I knew these were neighborhood dogs because I recognized almost every single one of them under the dim tangerine backyard light. But they weren't scared by the shadow figure. Okay. In fact, they looked to be welcoming it. The dogs formed a crowd around the figure, which stopped, and I swear to this day, morphed down into all fours, sprang a black tail, and disappeared into the night with the group of neighborhood dogs following. Maybe those aren't actually dogs. Maybe it's a group of flesh pedestrians just chilling and watching the neighborhood.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I've only thought of really just like one being around, but like a
whole pack.
Ooh.
Yep. I looked at my brother and asked, "What did you put in these cigarettes?" We both nervously chuckled, but we knew what we saw and hurried back inside, making sure we took our cigarette butts with us. Inside, our dad and youngest brother were asleep, but our mom was still up. We told our mom what happened, and she instructed us to go outside to get some wood to burn. She smeared ash on our foreheads, and we ventured outside to gather some firewood. While walking towards the wood pile, we noticed that our streetlight, which was on when we were heading back inside after stamping out our cigarettes, was out. The only street light in the entire neighborhood. We saw it as a sign of something being around and hurried to gather the wood. Right when we were about to head back inside, we could smell it. The strong, putrid scent of a dead animal. We knew right there that they were in the middle of all those stories we'd hear about skinwalkers. We didn't stop to take a look around. Instead, we made haste back into our house and built a fire. We told our mom what we smelled outside, and she marched outside with a fresh tin of ash to confront whatever was out there. She yelled in English and her native language to leave us the fuck alone. We never did anything to you, and commanded for it to leave by the traditional ways and the way of Jesus Christ. She sprinkled ash outside our front and back porch and anchored a bow and arrow above the door leading out towards the back porch. We slept that night without any more incidents. Months later, whenever I moved into the city to live with my older brother and work for the summer, I get a call from our mom. She told me that the neighbor who lived in the house that the shadow figure was outside of died of cancer. Whatever we seen that night still chills me to this day. Ugh. I don't like it.
Just the thought of having a pack of flesh pedestrians. Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Brother,
Brother,
no. Straight to hell.
Straight to paranormal jail for you.
Yes, thank you. Oh, we should have like a paranormal jail. We already do court.
Right.
So this one is from Andrew's Memes 69.
Okay.
I'm going to give you guys a brief timeline of my experiences with this place. The house is at a Greek island that experienced a terrible earthquake when my grandfather was still a kid. It destroyed his house, and my great-grandfather rebuilt it. This was, I'm going to say, 60-ish years ago. This was posted like a year ago. The way the house was built, most rooms have multiple doors to connect them and the larger space for big gatherings. My grandparents' room, for example, one of their walls is all doors for big gatherings. Okay. Skip forward. One of my great-grandparents died in the house. I don't remember who. We've been staying here ever since I was born, and for a big part of my life, I stayed at the room connected to my grandparents' house with the wall of doors. What kind of house is this? I need a diagram.
Yeah. Can you draw it out, please?
But as I grew up, I started wanting a bit more privacy, so I started sleeping in a different room. This room only had 2 doors, one connecting it to another bedroom, and the other was to the hallway.
Why is there so many doors in this house?
No. Every time I stay in this room at night, there is always something going on. I've heard whispers in languages I don't recognize, or someone calling me when I'm completely alone, and everyone else is out in the middle of the day.
Ew.
This year, for most of my stay, I've been sleeping at the aforementioned door wall room. There, I had this strange nightmare when I was young. A faceless woman was killing herself, and then I suddenly wake up. Last night, I was sleeping in the weird room with only 2 doors, and I had a similar nightmare, but these were 2 female entities, and I woke up in a similar manner. Tonight, when I tried to go back to bed, though, I had probably one of the most scariest encounters. It started with hearing loud footsteps in the hall, and then both of the bedroom doors banging like someone was trying to open them but can't. This went on for a few minutes, and after that died down, occasionally the doors were still banged on, and I heard a rhythmic tapping sound on the wall. It's only me and my grandparents in this house. My grandparents aren't the ones that are going to pull pranks in the middle of the night. They're old and they don't have the energy to do that kind of thing. They need their sleep. I don't know why I'm posting this. I guess I just need to talk to someone about it. There's something up with this house. Whether it's haunted or demonic, I don't know. The nightmares could be unrelated, but it's weird that they have a pattern of only showing up once I started sleeping in here. Legit, I couldn't hear because I got so scared. And this had a little bit of an update in the comments, so I had to copy and paste it.
Okay.
Update. Oh my god. You guys will now think this entire story is fake, but it turns out my grandma was walking down the hall. I still don't have any explanation for the dreams, but I feel so dumb.
Well, I'm glad you got some sort of closure and you got some sort of answer to what might have been going on.
At least with the sounds,
But, like,
dreams.
Also, like, the whispering and the names and stuff, like, that's weird. I don't like that.
Unless she's like a sleepwalker. You know what I mean? Because you can talk in your sleep and shit like that.
I'll be telling Grandma she getting locked in her room.
Honestly. Shut the fuck up!
Like, quit being creepy, Grandma. Go back to bed.
It's always the old people, too.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The last one I have is called Her Name is Death and She Calls Herself Summer.
I like the title.
Me too. This one was kind of weird. So I've been experiencing some very bizarre events since late 2011. They actually began in 2010 in the very first event after my stepfather passed away. I won't go into detail with it as it's a very long story. But anyways, when I met my best friend / girlfriend in December of 2011, some very unbelievable stuff started happening. This is one such story. I was sitting at a bus stop in Santa Monica, California one early evening, minding my own business. All of a sudden, this girl comes up and sits next to me. You ever get a feeling about someone that you just can't pinpoint? Well, I had this feeling. She goes on to tell me that her name is Summer and that she's in the area collecting souls because she is the angel of death. I was sitting there listening to her whole bizarro story. Then, she pulls out a cell phone and plays a self-recorded video. This video scared the poop out of me. She was in Venice, California, at an active crime scene, not a movie set, a real live bona fide crime scene. She was walking around filming police and people all around. All of a sudden, the camera turns to her and she says, "It's time to collect this soul." The camera goes back to the other position, and she walks right in between the two officers as she pulls the crime scene tape up so she can go underneath it. These cops were so close to her that she had to have rubbed elbows with them. They didn't even stop her nor question her. She then walks up to a gentleman on the ground who has blood around him. He's not moving and is very visibly dead. The camera goes back to her and she says, "He screwed up. Time to collect." I could have swore I saw something. What? I don't know. She then films the scene from within the crime scene tape, walks back to the crime scene tape, and a police officer lifts it for her. She doesn't say anything to lifts it for her, doesn't say anything to her, and she walks off. End of footage. She then says to me, "Now you know who I am. Who are you?" At which point a group of people around us exclaim, "Let's catch this cab." They all pile in, the cab drives off. Summer looks at me and jumps up asking me how I did that. I honestly didn't do nothing. Her eyes get wide with tears running down her cheeks as she exclaims, "It's you! I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you." And she backs away from me, bowing her head. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced, but definitely not the strangest.
Who are you?
Yeah. She's like, "It's you! I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you." Like, what? What? And she apparently collects souls. So, like, do you work for the Grim Reaper? Like,
Are you a fairy woman?
Yeah. Like, also, like, did you, like, somehow enchant the police officers to let you be there? Like, how?
Or could they not see her?
Well, one of them lifted up the tape for her to leave.
But how? Well, in that instance, yeah, they probably could have been like,
Yeah.
but like actually being on the crime scene and stuff like that.
Or maybe I'm wondering if she's possibly, like, works with the crime scene investigation people and she's just going along with this some sort of story.
Potentially.
Because, like, how else would she be allowed to go in there and record shit on her phone?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going through the comments on that one between the person who wrote this and other people. And I guess they're just a very, very, very spiritual person saying, like, they don't need to explain certain things, all this kind of stuff. But I don't know.
I'm very interested, too, because, like, you would think that someone who collects souls wouldn't necessarily be like, oh yeah, I'm going to record me collecting souls.
Mm-hmm. Because, like, there's other things where somebody was like, wild experience, whether real or not, trust your gut in moments like this and stay grounded. And the original poster was like, what does that mean, stay grounded? I ran into a very interesting fellow in Hollywood that, let's just say, I don't think he was from around here, Earth. He said, I was doing well and to remain grounded. You're the second person that has told me this. I can say without a doubt that this and the other strange events I've experienced are 100% real and not imagined. Plus, some of the things I've experienced come with witnesses. If it weren't for that fact, plus my neurons are all firing in correct order, I think I'd be crazy by now. And then someone saying whenever she said it's you, someone said that made them really suspicious, as if she mistook your identity despite zeroing right on you. They've heard that demons will attempt to flatter people in developing God complexes. Maybe some spirits are attempting to groom you as a false prophet. There must be something extra special in your makeup that would allow this plan to work in first place, capable of signs and wonders. Seems like God and Satan are coming at you extra hard by the sounds of your posts. And their response to that was, I totally appreciate you and your amazing spot-on response. Thank you for understanding. Yep, I have the attention of that side of the veil without a doubt. I'm pretty sure I know why. Unfortunately, that isn't something I can discuss, and I'm definitely sure I don't have to, with you at least, as your sense of understanding or knowledge and discernment of my situation are spot on. Thank you. Yes, I do miss her tremendously, maybe a little more than I should. I'm forever thankful that he put us on the very direct path to one another. Thanks again, stranger / not stranger. I'm aware of what's happening and the forces behind it, and I do take caution. I know I'll be fine. So it sounds like they're a very, like, spiritual person. But, like, still, that's like, what?
Okay, so this one is by Not So Gentle Ben, and it's titled, My Summer Camp Had a Haunted Cabin. I went to the same camp from 1995 to 2009. It was in the woods of the Pacific Northwest on Puget Sound, and was a pretty small camp of less than 150 campers a week, spread between a dozen cabins. I started there as a camper when I was 8 years old, going 1 week every summer. And then when I was 12, I became a CIT, spending my whole summers there. When I turned 18, I was a counselor in the summer, and by 21, I was an OEE instructor in the off seasons. So it's safe to say I was very familiar with the land and the lore of my specific camp. There were a few camp legends. One was Walter, the giant fish that supposedly lived in the lagoon. We even had camp-out spots across the lagoon we called Walter's Landing.
It reminds me of what is that movie called? Big Fish or something?
Yeah, Big Fish.
That's what it reminds me of.
It being the Pacific Northwest, of course, there are going to be tales of Sasquatch roaming the woods. As a young camper, these legends were creepy and believable, but as I got older, I got wiser and came to realize that these were stories to keep kids away from sneaking out of the cabins at night and encourage them not to stray out of the swim sections or stay in the boats on the lagoon. Naturally, these stories were technically forbidden to be relayed to campers. Not everybody likes scary stories. I like them, but I get it.
Yeah.
There was one forbidden tale, though, that most counselors didn't even share with other counselors unless they had experience from that specific cabin.
Oh.
I think I first heard of the stories in my early teens, maybe 13 or 14 years old. Earlier than most kids, probably because I was a good CIT and got along with my counselors and was a part of a small group of maybe less than a dozen of yearly returning campers turned to CITs. And I was pretty open about my love for all things creepy, macabre, mysterious, or paranormal. Anyway, there's this one cabin, we call it Craven Cabin. Yes, that is a homage to Wes Craven, which, if you're not familiar, Wes Craven is a very prominent horror director. He did, like, Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street, I think Scream, and a bunch of others. Like, he's very prominent in the horror industry. In Craven Cabin, people would hear strange knocks and noises at night, find things move from where they left them without explanation, and would just get an overall off-putting vibe from the cabin. The origin story that was told over the years was that an unnamed child that we took to calling Timmy was spending his week in Craven Cabin. He had fallen out of a rowboat and drowned in the lagoon, but was never found, and thus forever haunts Craven Cabin.
Haven't we heard
I
story before?
think so. As I'm reading it, I'm pretty sure.
Not this exact one, Because I specifically remember whenever you were saying like something like little Timmy.
Well, and there was like knocks. I've read this story.
Because as soon as you said little Timmy, because I specifically remember you talking about that streamer or that YouTuber.
Tim the Tatman.
Tim the Tatman. Like little Timmy. You can keep reading, but
I've read this story. This was in another paranormal Reddit story.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Wow.
I was like, wait, this is sounding familiar.
Time doesn't exist. Yeah.
Maybe this is like another point of view from it, though.
Maybe.
Or is it maybe the exact same
It's
one?
probably the exact same. But then again, I don't remember it going into detail about being in the Pacific Northwest.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, maybe it's the same
story, but a different perspective.
different teller.
Okay, all right. But yeah, I've definitely read.
That'd be interesting if that is that.
Now I'm gonna have to research too later when I'm done editing. Okay. Now this camp was founded in the 1910s, but it was moved to its current location in the 60s. When I was older, a friend and I did some digging on the internet and the closest library to the camp, and we couldn't find any evidence of this story being true. But that didn't discount other people's experiences, much less our own. I'll only tell my story as it was the only one I personally experienced. The only time I spent a week in Craven Cabin was my first year as a counselor. In the middle of the summer, I was 18 years old. Like I said, I had heard tales, and there were about noises and things being moved, but I wrote them off as people being spooked out by being in the woods at night or just trying to scare some teens. I didn't believe them, as I had never spent a night in Craven Cabin. These cabins were built in the 60s, sans a few newer ones, and on stilts, as the camp was on a big hill. Craven Cabin had a long ramp lined with sandpaper leading to the front door. The immediate right of the entrance was a bathroom, and beyond that, a square main room with 2 counselor bunks on the right. Mine was closest to the bathroom, and a wood stove in between on the right wall. The 5 kids' bunks were on the left, opposite of the front door, and there were 2 large sliding doors that led to the big back porch with a picnic-style table and benches, all of which were maybe 12 feet off the forest floor. We've definitely read this story. But I'm wondering if maybe it was from Chris's perspective, because that's the co-counselor. It was the second night when it started. My co-counselor, Chris, had the night off, so he was in the staff lounge, and I was alone with the campers and a CIT named Mike for about 2 hours. Mike slept in the bunk across the stove from mine above Chris. About an hour in, the kids were sound asleep, as was Mike, and I was reading my book when I heard a knock on the wall near my head. It was this one we read.
How funny you chose the exact same one.
Yeah, it was this one we read.
Well, it's new for whoever.
A knock on the wall near my head, which was on the outside maybe 10 feet off the ground. It startled me, and it sounded intentional. 2 close raps that were not very subtle. I told myself it was the tree and continued reading, fully aware that it wasn't windy or even breezy.
Whatever you need to tell yourself, Jan.
Right? Then, after a short time, I heard it a second time. Knock, but this time it was on the roof. I told myself that maybe it was wildlife or maybe a pine cone falling, but again, it was 2 immediate sequential raps, sharp and clear. I was admittedly starting to have trouble convincing myself that it was the squirrels.
I would keep convincing myself that it was the squirrels.
Over the next half hour or so, the knocks happened a few more times. Over the kids' wall, below the floor, around the bathroom, on the back porch. I no longer had the capacity to convince myself of conventional explanations. Knock, 2 raps, every time. And everyone was just snoozing away. Just as I was psyching myself up to go outside and investigate, Chris had returned to the lounge. Oh, what a relief. As to not wake anybody, I quietly asked him if he saw any critters outside. Raccoons, squirrels, hell, even a deer. Nope, and nope. I told him about the strange knocks, and he wrote them off as nature, the same as I had attempted to convince myself earlier, when we got into our bunk beds and eventually dozed off without any further knocks. The next day, day 3, Even though I wanted to talk to somebody about it, I kept the experience to myself. I didn't want it to go around to the directors, much less the campers. It wasn't unnecessarily hard to not tell my tale. The day was filled with activities and fun, and it was constantly in the back of my mind. We ended the day with a campfire full of songs and skits and laughs and cheers, and happily headed back to our cabins as the darkness settled in. We got the campers ready for bed, PJs, brushed teeth, and at the end of the night, conversations of archery, boats, and other fun. It was my night off, so I bid everyone good night and headed off to the lounge with my flashlight. It was nice, snacks and candid conversations with counselors my age. I forgot all about the night before. Eventually, Kathy, the camp director, flashed the lights and said, "All right, folks, it's 11, time to go home. Have a good sleep, big day tomorrow." Just like she ended every night. We said our goodbyes and headed back to our cabins. I walked with a couple of my neighbors who peeled off as we got closer to their cabins, and as I arrived at the bottom of Craven Cabin's ramp, my inside sunk. Suddenly, I realized how cold and quiet it was. No crickets or cicadas, no breeze, just the distant sound of waves lapping on the shore. I was frozen. Every single First of all, you clawed my back. Fucking Jesus Christ. Every single cell
Diva.
in my body was telling me to turn around and go back to safety of the lodge, the lights of the lodge, the warm comfort of fellow humans. I didn't feel alone. Yeah, I didn't feel alone. I shined my flashlight around and saw nothing. Okay, take a deep breath. I forced myself to walk up the ramp to the door, but it felt like forcing myself to wade through a body of water that was too dark and too cold. I made it in and quickly got into bed. It felt safer in my bunk. Another deep breath. I closed my eyes, and the next thing I knew, I was hearing the camp bugle. It was morning, and there were no knocks. It was day 4 at this point. A good day. French toast for breakfast, tacos for dinner. Hell yeah. And an all-camp game of capture the flag after dinner, which was my favorite. The same as any night, we ended at the campfire, and then it was time for bed. Mike has the night off this time, so he goes to the lodge. I'm skipping some parts because it's getting...
This is exactly what you did the last time, too.
The peace was broken with more knocks on the wall. He locked eyes with Chris, raising his eyebrows as if to say, "See?" Chris let out a pfft and shook his head and went back to reading.
Such a Chris response.
I know, right? Though I did see him scan the room with his eyes, he seemed to be having the same problem convincing himself that I had 2 nights ago. I also went back to my book, and then I made it one more page when another knock knock, but this time in the middle of the floor, and then another on the porch wall right next to Chris's bunk. He shot out of bed, slid the back door open, and scanned the porch, but there was nothing. He looked back at me, and his face had fallen. His eyes were wide, and his mouth was open. I was sitting up now, breathing in my chest, and he closed the door and slunk back into his bunk. I laid back down and attempted to slow my breathing. There was no more reading now, but neither of us turned off our flashlights. More knocks, but this time they were slower and impatient, and right behind Chris's head.
Ew.
He mouthed, "What the fuck?" and I widened my eyes to give a tiny shake of my head and a microscopic twitch of a shrug while mouthing, "I don't know." The kids were still out cold. Basically, there were more and more knocks. Chris now understands that he wasn't, just crazy. And asked, was it him? And Mike, who was now back from the lodge, was like, "Was what, me?" And they're like, "The knocks." And he goes, "No. Why? The door was supposed to be locked." And they ask if he sees any animals, and he says no. And then he got into bed. And then, as sleep never came for Chris and the guy, it sounded like somebody was dragging a body of laundry, and that's how they describe it, down the ramp.
Body of laundry?
Body of laundry. Like a big, I think they meant to say bag.
Okay.
He gets up, shines his flashlight. Chris and Mike are now up too, and the campers are now starting to ask what's wrong.
Well, that must be a weird sound because it's covered in sandpaper.
Yeah. And so he just says, "Don't worry, I just dropped my book, go back to bed, big day tomorrow," to not scare the kids.
Yeah.
And then that was it, and there were no more knocks that night. and neither Chris nor Mike heard any more knocks. Word had then started to get around to the staff, and we couldn't hide our fatigue. A few people had asked if the kids kept us up, and we didn't have the energy to lie. We said strange knocks were keeping us up, but kept the details to ourselves. Nothing about the knocks responding to Chris, and nothing about the slam and the drag. Later that day, Kathy pulled me and Chris into the office. I'm not sure she believed us. She was new that summer and transferred from a camp out of state. She hadn't heard the stories and didn't know the lore.
Sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yellow. Hey.
I'm on my way back to the house. I'm not going back to work.
Okay.
I'm going to go take a nap after that. So what you got? Not you today, too.
That's up to you, Mom. Okay. 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 Are you okay? Are you feeling sick? Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Love you. Alright. Bye.
She's not feeling well?
Yeah. She had to get up for her appointment, so she's like, I got Dad and I some lunch, and I'm probably going to take a nap after that, so let's say no for today too. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay, sounds good.
I mean, sleep is very important.
Yeah.
I get it.
I'm like, okay, Mom.
Anyway, Kathy is skeptical, but she saw that we believed and that we were shook up and told us to come straight to her if anything else happened. Even if it's late, we were to wake her up. But that was that. The next 2 nights were quiet and uneventful.
Mm-hmm.
The campers went home none the wiser, and Kathy promised me, Chris and Mike, that we wouldn't have to be in Craven Cabin again. She kept that promise.
Say that 10 times.
Craven Cabin was quiet the rest of the summer, and in the years following, all 3 of us came back. We never stepped foot in there again. Though the cabin wasn't done, at least once a summer, somebody had a new story, new knocks, and we kept our tale between us at the end until the end of each summer, only to be shared to let other counselors know they weren't crazy and add them to the legend of Craven Cabin. Names and details were changed for anonymity. I can't tell you what it was. I just don't know, but I can say it definitely happened in the early 2000s at a camp in the woods of the Pacific Northwest.
Oof.
Which is the exact story I read months ago.
If I kept hearing those knocks, I would have lost my shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, no.
I would have gone out there and be like, whatever motherfucker thing is coming over here.
Like, get the fuck out! We don't want you!
Away. I'm trying to sleep. I say that, but then I'm probably going to be like,
Please
up underneath
go
my
away.
up underneath my blanket, like, oh, talking to. Did you hear that? That concludes tonight's Summerween weather report.
If you experienced any unexplained cold spots, flickering porch lights, or emotional discomfort while outside, that's normal for Summerween.
Stay hydrated, stay inside when the air feels off, and remember,
If the wind starts sounding like it knows your name, it probably does.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have any stories you would like to let us know, please comment them on any of these socials or email us at theafterlifehotline@gmail.com.
Yes.
Keep one foot in the living world.
And 1 year on the line.
Bye.